for the mirror image project, we're going to start out with a warm-up, and that's going to allow the students to try out this concept on a small scale before we move to the final drawing. So this is the warm-up worksheet you're going to find in the lesson plan. And to start, you can show your students how a mirror image works. It's where we take an image on one side and it's exactly the same on the other. So these first two, you can have the students use some type of tessellation block or just cut out a piece of paper in that shape, and they can see how you can take an image and flip it and it's exactly the same on the other side. Then you're going to have the students simply take their pencil, study the lines and shapes on this side, and then replicate them over on that side. Same thing with this one. If you had some sort of block like that, you can have the students use it, flip the image over to the left, and then do it on that side. There we go. If you don't have blocks, or if you don't want to cut out paper, that's fine. These images are simple enough that the students could probably take the image in their mind, flip it, and draw it on that side. And then they continue on, and they're going to do the same thing with these shapes here. We have straight lines and circles, the same as we would use in oils, but now we're simply taking them and flipping them from the center outward. So I'll take this and copy that outward like that. And I notice that as I study these shapes, this circle is bigger, so I want to replicate that on that side. Just like when we did the apple drawings, we really have to study what we see. Even though this is flat and not an object, it's the same idea of looking and observing those lines and shapes. I'll just go ahead and kind of quickly finish this, just like that, and you get the idea of what the students would do. Now on the last one, if you look closely, you can see this very light dotted line down the middle. So your students will just draw anything they want. You can say, draw an angled line and a circle. So they would just figure out how to do any angled line and a circle, whatever they wanted to do. And now they can pass the paper to the person on their left, and they would get the paper from the person next to them. And then they would have to replicate the image that was passed to them. So the next person would have to look at that and draw this. So for the last one, everyone would have a different mirror image to copy, and you can use the oils terminology as they do that. After the warm-up, then the whole class will start on the final drawing, which is the Liberty Bell, which goes along with our American history theme. And you can see that this image, even though it's just full of, the oils terminology, we see angled lines, straight lines, circles, and things like that. It's more complicated. We have lots of different lines and shapes together as one, and they're going to have to flip that whole thing from the center and flip it out this way and draw it on that side. Now that looks a little overwhelming to begin with, but we have to remember that we can look at individual lines and shapes first and not get overwhelmed with everything together. So when I first draw, I'm always going to look at the major lines I see and start with those, and all of my details will be last. As your students begin to draw, you can walk it through together. I would say, what's the first major line that we see? And they probably would start at the top and say a long straight line. So now we have to flip that line and do it on that side. Of course, we could just easily study that, easy peasy, and draw it over on that side. But we want to be really, really accurate. So one way to do that is to measure how long something is and transfer it over there. So I know that my end point is going to be right there. So I could give myself a little marker and say, all right, it goes out straight. So I'm going to go out straight. But now I know how to make it exactly the same size as that side, because we do want an exact mirror image as much as we can. This side is going to come down. Is it a straight line? No. And you can have the kids tell you what they see. They might say it comes down straight and it goes in, out, however they want to talk about that line. They want to study it first and then replicate it here. You can also have the kids take their finger and trace along it and see how that line moves, and they can feel it, and then take their pencil on the other side and do it, and also feel it, but use their pencil as they put it down on the paper there. And same thing, if they want to measure how far down it goes, they can always give themselves a little marker to know where to go to. goes in and up, and I can feel it goes in and it curves up. It'll come in and curve up. All right, my next major line is this kind of S-type curve here. It starts towards the center and it goes outward, so I have to start towards the center and go outward. Sometimes it's hard to take something and flip it that way, but we have to think of what's closer to the middle, and then what happens is it would go towards the side of the paper. Now I'm going to do this long line here. As it goes out and comes down, does it come down straight? We can feel it. I can feel it curve outward, or I can also see it come outward. If your kids are kinesthetic, they might want to touch things more. If they're just visual, they can study it with their eyes. We'll go out and then curve down and out, because I see it kind of goes out here at the bottom. Again, if you wanted to measure and make it exactly accurate, you would see how long it is and make sure it's the same length right over there. Now I'm going to study this line, and I see that it curves outward, just like that. Now I'm going to fill in some of these interior lines. This is not exactly straight, so you can ask the kids, does it curve up or down? Hopefully they can see that it curves down a little bit, so I'm going to curve down as well and come towards that center. This one also has a slight curve down. It comes towards the center. Now we have the major outline, and it's going to be a lot easier to add the details now into this structure. So ask the kids to describe the details they see, and we can go one by one and go through that. I'm going to do it quickly, but remember to use our oils terminology. So when we look at these, I would ask the kids, do we use curved lines? No. What kind of lines do we use? Angled, because it goes and it stops and it goes again. This one is near the edge, so I'm going to start near the edge here. Use my angled lines. Another one here. Now let's observe this. What do we see? Is it the same distance from here to here as here to here? No, it's a little bit longer. So I'm going to make sure that I'm trying to copy that exactly as it is on that side. Straight lines, do they go exactly straight down? They come in a little bit towards the middle. So I also have to come towards the middle as I do that. We have a curved line here that connects. And it's always good to ask the kids what they see. So if they want to describe that for you rather than you doing it, then it's more of a classroom discussion and the kids can hear how other people are observing those lines. Straight lines of different lengths. Which one's the longest? This one. How long is it? Oh, about there. A little bit shorter than that one. Curved lines here. And again, just talk it through with your class. I have 2 curved lines left. This one is small and it's near that edge, so I can go over here and do a small curved line. This one is more towards the center. How close to the center? I can use my fingers and say, oh, it's about halfway from the edge to the center. Right about there. It's a little bit longer. Now we have our mirror image of the Liberty Bell. But nowadays, the Liberty Bell has a crack down the middle. When it was first made, obviously it didn't have that. But over time, the crack developed, and they widened the crack as a way of restoring it and trying to get that crack to stop getting longer. So we have a nice, really visible crack in that bell. So on your paper, you're going to first draw that, and they're going to replicate it on theirs. It actually starts about in the middle from this side. It goes up, and it kind of wiggles to the left. And it goes straight up pretty high like that. So I'm able to talk about my curved lines and my straight lines using my oils terminology as I do that. So my mirror image now has a line that's not a mirror image on it. And you can have a discussion with your students. Does this still count as a mirror image even though both sides are not exactly the same? And you can have your students discuss it and give their opinions. I would personally say that it's still a mirror image because in general, both sides are exactly the same. But your students might disagree and have other reasons for believing what they believe about that. But overall, just discussing what the term mirror image means and how to categorize drawings, it's a great discussion to have with your kids. Finally, if there's time, we're going to start doing some shading in some of our drawings in the next few weeks. So this will be an introduction to shading, and you can do it with the kids if you have a few minutes. If not, don't worry about it. To add shading to this, we're going to use lines. And just because the bell also curves, I'm going to be using slightly curved lines to add some shadow on this side. And I'm going to go through like that. Also here, here, here. So because I'm only adding shadow on one side, it looks like the light is coming from this side and this side has a shadow. Because the lines are slightly curved, it's kind of mimicking that three-dimensional bell curve, or the curve of that bell on that side. And then the more lines we add, the darker that shadow becomes. And so that will change the look of it by doing that. So you can show your kids that technique, and then later on throughout the next 6 weeks, we're going to revisit that again.